How are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi and welcome. Today, let's talk about what a TBC classic will actually look like. I think it might be a bit different than what a lot of people have nostalgia for in BC. In vanilla, not that many people got to do in game or even made it to 60. The leveling was not nearly as big of a part of the game in TBC. A lot more people made it to in-game PvE and PvP. I think this means a lot more people will have nostalgia for specific seasons or patches in TBC. I know seasons 1 and 3 were when I enjoyed it the most and have the most nostalgia. So let's take a look at some important things that changed over BC's lifespan to get an idea of how it will be in its most likely 2.5 state. First, let's look at some of the things that were in the pre-patch, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff there, and I'm sure we've all forgot a few things. Downranking. So, they nerfed downranking in BC, but they didn't actually kill it. There were still plenty of reasons to downrank. I forgot they had even done this change, since it seemed to have such a little effect. Pet scaling. This was actually in the pre-patch, not later on in BC. An incredibly important change for hunters, which we deserve being the master race and all. The farsight effect has changed so that the camera now zooms into a distant location, rather than instantly showing the distant view. This also affects the items Ultra Spectropic Vision Goggles, the Ornate Spyglass, and the hunter ability Eagle Eye. The fuck? I don't remember that at all. And I even played Shaman in BC a lot as well. Arming time. What? I remember being able to use traps in combat, sure. But never an arming time. Oh, okay. I do remember this. So, there wasn't like a special animation to it is what threw me off, because I was thinking of like an animation where you throw your trap down and it does something before it can actually be used. But I do distinctly remember in PvP, hunters dropping traps and then dancing around the trap on melee when I was playing either my warrior or enhance or rogue. I do remember that, and yeah, that's not fun. Actually, I think the PvP system here is probably the biggest thing people will remember from pre-patch. At least it was for me. I remember doing tons of pre-mades to gear up my tunes for BC. I even still have the GMC on my warrior that I got from doing that. Since my paladin was the one to make it to rank 14, my warrior only got to like 8 or some shit. Alright, moving on from pre-patch. Patch 2.0.3 doesn't have a ton of interesting changes, but this one was really surprising. Disengage working with misdirect? Holy shit! Imagine the pro plays you could have pulled off with that. MD a disengage, then remove the buff after that. Genius. Could save so many heroes with that in dungeons and shit. I hope that is like that in TBC Classic. That would be really cool. Alright, patch 2.0.10. Big buff for Victory Rush here. This isn't a big deal to most people, but I remember leveling up my warrior first in BC. I got that and I just remember thinking like, wow, this ability sucks. It was terrible. So I was really glad to see that buff. The main thing in this patch though is the Thunder Fury nerf. This was still an incredibly powerful item in raids in BC. In fact, I think the effect was also nerfed at some point in BC, but I couldn't find that in the notes. There were also a ton of small dungeon tweaks, but nothing especially noticeable. Then we finally get to patch 2.1, a huge patch, the Black Temple patch. Yeah, that's right. The Black Temple came out in patch 2.1. The penultimate raid came out in the first major content patch. You're probably thinking, wait, what about Hyjal? Yeah, that was there at launch. Karazhan, Gruul, Magtheridon, SSC, TK, and Hyjal at launch. Yeah, the tuning was absolutely fucked. But BC definitely had more in-game content at launch than any other expansion. It's insane. This patch also brought a ton of other things like Nether Drakes and all their dailies, the Skedis dailies, Ogrila dailies, the Ruins of Lordaeron arena, Druid epic flight form, pet avoidance. Mend pet became instant. I honestly thought that was in the pre-patch. Hypothermia was added, sap no longer broke stealth. A lot of those really iconic class changes that we still have today came in patch 2.1. And very importantly, a lot of gear was rebalanced. There were tons of epics, especially in Kara, that were absolute ass. I remember tanking Kara on my warrior with an all Chinese guild on Australian time. And we would be very confused when gear would drop that was just not very good. Especially when we weren't even in pre-raid bits, we were mostly in quest gear that we were comparing it to. Although, maybe I was confused because I couldn't understand them. They'd only talk in Chinese like 90% of the time. I had no idea what the fuck they were saying. But it's still good. I mean, it's BC raid, right? This was a very good change, and I would expect the shit versions of these items to just never show up in TBC Classic. Heroic end bosses also always dropped at least one epic item. I remember running Mechanar so many times for that fucking sword and never got it. Even after 2.1, that shit never dropped. You know, tell me what gear never dropped for you in BC, because I know you all have at least one item that never did. It'll make me feel better. The engineering goggles were added in 2.1. Those not being there at launch could seriously make me drop engineering, although, I mean, we'll all be forced into leatherworking anyway. And sadly, there were tons of dungeon and raid rebalances in 2.1. Some were good, yeah, but mostly they made things a lot easier. Some more buffs were axed in this patch as well. I'm not sure if it was all of them, but at least the DM buffs were. At some point in BC, nearly all of them were unable to affect level 70 players, which was very, very good. But most importantly, they added 2 new graveyards to Blade's Edge Mountains. Thank you, Hunter Jesus. I know you at least once auto ran off a cliff in Blade's Edge Mountains and had to deal with that shitty run back. It was fucking brutal. Patch 2.1.2 redesigned our PvP trinkets. This finally gave us the ones that remove everything. It's a long time coming. Patch 2.2 brought in the voice chat. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I actually used this some. At this time, we were pretty much done with Ventrilo and TeamSpeak outside of raids, so for Arena, everyone wanted to use Skype. But I didn't like Skype. So I used the in-game one a lot, and it actually worked pretty good. There wasn't a whole lot in between 2.2 and 2.3, surprisingly, but 3.3 brought us Zul Aman. I always thought ZA came out pretty late in the expansion for a 10-man. It was a pretty fun raid though. 2.3 was also when guild banks were introduced. Yeah, really. The fuck? Those felt like a bigger part of BC to me, and I thought they were in there earlier. There were also quite a few important hunter changes in 2.3. Aim shot casting faster and finally having its MS effect. Plus, Arcane Shot was removing a magic buff. Nice. Drums saw some changes in 2.3 also. Actually, they saw changes a few times in BC, and I'm very interested to see what state they'll be in for BC Classic, because that's pretty important. Introduction of the daily dungeon quests. Now these, I have a shitload of memories doing these things. And actually, I did not remember them coming in so late, just because I had so many memories of them. I assumed they were in there earlier. Reinforcements and some other changes for AV. So for me, AV was already ruined by patch 1.12. So this version to speed up honor grinding was a nice change. Either give me that old version that felt like an actual epic battleground, or just give me a fast one to farm honor is how I look at it. Now, the biggest change we saw in 2.3 though was probably the leveling revamp. It was huge. The amount of XP needed to go from 11 to 60 was massively reduced, while also increasing the XP rewarded from quests, including dungeon quests, which saw a big increase. Almost all open world quests like Jintha Lore, Stromgarde, those were turned into soloable quests. There were even more quests added, like a bunch in Dustwallow and Mudsprocket. And finally, mercifully, Defias Pillagers got nerfed. It's about fucking time. Those motherfuckers were insane. And finally, patch 2.4. This brought us, of course, Quel'Danas and the Sunwell. What a fun zone, man. Those dailies were pretty wild on a PvP server. 2.4 actually brought quite a few things with it. Surprising since it was the last major patch. Spell Haste finally affects the global cooldown in 2.4. This was a pretty big change from what I can remember. I know I stacked Haste on a PvP mage and that was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun to play that way. Actually, PvP in all forms had some pretty big changes in 2.4. HK diminishing returns were finally removed, and honor was calculated instantly. Yeah, that's right. So even though we were able to use honor as currency to buy gear, it took a day for it to calculate. Couldn't buy shit right away. That was a really nice change. OOC drinking in Arena was also changed. This used to be a big fucking deal. Someone getting just a few sips off in a game could turn it into a loss. This also did help keep match times in check. So many games as War Druid that just went on for fucking ever back then. It's the reason why I only play double DPS in 2s now. Queue times for Arena reduced. Oh, Jesus Christ, I remember this. Basically, there was a really small limit on the number of games that could be played at any one time. Yeah, I'm not joking. So you could wait in a 10-minute queue only to play the exact same team you played last time, who also waited in the same 10-minute queue. It was really bad, and I couldn't believe it took them that long to fix this. In fact, I vividly remember I was on my shaman and I just needed to play games for points. You know, it was Monday or whatever. I just needed to get this done. So I just got some random guy named Quarters. Why do I still remember that guy's name? I have no fucking idea. I think he was a warlock. Shout out to Quarters on Aerithor. What's up, buddy? We would queue up for a game, wait at least 10 minutes for each game, because you had to play 10 games for points. It was at least 10 minutes. Some of those were over 15 minutes. And at least 5 of those games, we played the exact same team. Because we just kept winning and then losing and then winning and losing. I remember the team was a paladin and something else, but it was pretty ridiculous. I'm very excited that this will not be a thing in TBC Classic. And the final patch, 2.4.3, brought a few more small changes, like rocket boots no longer usable in Arena. Yeah, I definitely remember seeing those in Arena on occasion. I remember one dude, when I was on my warrior, just fucking booking it with those behind a pillar in the Blade's Edge arena. And it was the first time I saw those in Arena. I didn't think you could use them. And one other big thing, mounts at level 30. Yeah, all those leveling changes really add up. I think Classic showed us that even though leveling did take some time, most of us were able to level up in a pretty short period of time. You throw all these BC changes on top of that, it really won't take any time at all. A BC Classic leveling experience will be totally different than the experience you would have had if you re-rolled Draenei or Blood Elf at launch. I know I leveled a Draenei Shaman a few weeks after launch and it was fun, but time-consuming experience. All those PvP changes also really add up. Instant queues in Arena alone is a big change. We'd really have to sit there and think about what happened in that previous game when we had to wait 10 minutes until the next one. Especially when we lost. That could be a rough queue time. Just 10 minutes of everybody blaming each other. I didn't cover every class change, obviously, but the class balance also changed drastically over the expansion. And 2.4 probably is the most balanced, thankfully. Although it's obviously not perfect. And finally, all those changes to dungeons and raids. These are incredibly worrying if I'm being honest. We already saw how WoW Classic launched with everything in its finished 1.12 state. And that had its upsides, but a lot of encounters were fucked. I mean, just nerfed into the ground by that point. I'm a little worried if we see TBC Classic at 2.4.3, we'd end up in a similar situation. Which is a goddamn shame, because those launch heroics were phenomenal. Yes, I know we're not going to have world buffs and that sort of thing is going to be different, but it still does worry me. But that is a different discussion for a different, sure to be released soon video. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button, bell, like button, hype button, share button, all that other shit. It really does help the channel, and I really do appreciate each and every one I get. You can also follow me on Instagram for updates. I forgot to post updates on Instagram for like 3 weeks now. You should still follow me there if you're on Insta. I also am streaming on YouTube now, so I hope you're excited for that. There's going to be a lot more streams on here in the coming weeks, and I'd love to have you join me. We did a launch stream for Shadowlands. It was about a 14-hour stream. It was excellent, really great time. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all for the next one.
New sources of arcane magic and the means of defending their land against the undying horrors of the Scourge. As one of the few surviving Blood Elves, you must master your thirst for magic and help shape the destiny of your people.